And if you cook the kale and dump the water, you keep the nutrients from the kale, but you're getting rid of the oxalic acid. You can add baking soda. So, and if you're maintaining alkaline pH the way Dr. Kabaka talked about it, then that alkaline pH is going to help you a lot with your handling the oxalic acid that's in them. And some people like I eat kale every day. I love it. I have no gut issues and everything works. And you should keep doing that. But I find for a lot of people, they're like, I'm gonna choke it down. I don't like it. My body's telling me not to eat it, and then they don't feel good. But like, but I did what was good for me. I'll do it again. And I certainly was one of those as a raw vegan. I had all sorts of oxalic acid issues that I hadn't figured out. But the other thing is, if you eat broccoli, which is also green and has lots of good stuff for estrogen metabolism in it, if you eat a little bit of raw broccoli, just a bite, or some radish, it'll have an enzyme in it that unlocks a lot of the good stuff that's in the greens. So even in some raw kale, but not all raw kale, might be a better path.
Yeah, I think there's a point too, and like my next book that's coming out next year called Menu Pause. Pausing, like we do a strict pause on all greens for a time. Let's see how you do. Each of us talk about this in our own expertise, but changing things up.
Yes.
Like flexibility. The same with fasting. Flexibility. Like I love having a big breakfast while I was on vacation with my daughter, and and doing, having that ability to do that and not gain weight, not feel sick. And I think it's really important to continue to change things up and see what works. Take these pauses. Take the vegetarian. Do the vegetarian pause. Do a keto pause, right? Extreme carbohydrate restriction. And change things up, and especially when you're our age. I mean, I continue to battle this. I went from being a fat kid to fat postpartum mom and doctor to really just trying to navigate this in the healthiest way possible, not just to look good, right? We're here to feel good and to perform at our best for all those we love and ourselves. So, Cynthia.
I think one of the really important things, I joke about food monogamy, but I'm really not joking. And here's the thing, like we can flex and change what we're doing. When I had a 13-day hospitalization in 2019, when I came out, the only thing I tolerated for 9 months was carnivore. I couldn't tolerate oxalates, forget about fiber. Now, almost 2 years later, I can start pulling more of those into my diet. And why I want to share this with everyone is I started wearing a continuous glucose monitor 3 months ago. Boy, was I stunned, because I was very high protein, moderate fat, and low carb. Well, I had to completely change it up. What I was finding was my body wanted more fat, less protein, and low carb. And so acknowledging that just because something works today doesn't mean that you might not need to do something different tomorrow. And then, having an ability to really monitor, and this is something we haven't really touched on, but we become more physiologically insulin resistant as we get older. Let me say that again. Even if you're thin, you will become more physiologically insulin resistant the older you get, especially as you get close to menopause. And this is where I see a lot of women really starting to struggle, because they'll say, I'm not eating too much, I'm fasting, I'm doing all the right things. And that's when I'll say to people, every single person in this that's watching this on the replay or watching it live should have a continuous glucose monitor, even if just for 2 weeks to 4 weeks of your life, because it can be life changing. You can see the impact of your blood sugar in response to stress, in response to nutrition, in response to sleep quality. Really, really important. And, mostly also because it allows you to kind of have some objective information. Like, you may feel fine in your blood sugar's high. You have no idea. Like, I had plantains of all things. Higher carb day, had plantains every time I ate them. My blood sugar went to 150, which it never went that high. And so acknowledging I didn't feel bad. I didn't get sweaty. I didn't feel poorly. So everyone that's watching, talk to your healthcare provider about getting a CGM. It's a very minor investment if your insurance doesn't cover it. It is worth the money to at least have 2 to 4 weeks worth of data.
You know what I noticed on mine that shocked me is cauliflower tortilla strips and tortillas shot my blood sugar up way higher than like a gluten-free one.
Yeah.
And I thought, wait a second, aren't I eating the cauliflower stuff so that I, keep my blood sugar low? So you just don't know. And it's because we all have different bacteria in our gut that regulate the different foods. So it's an N of one situation again. And then the other thing I want to contribute to this conversation on is it's so much easier for us to say, do it exactly this way. And yet it's almost like you have to create a toolbox and go, what fasts and what foods work best for me? And let's be playful about it. Let's experiment with it. And then you'll find your groove pretty fast.
What you'll find is that if you get your physician to prescribe a CGM, and I put a link in there. It's one I'm not getting paid.
Hello.
I just want to get to the front of the line. There's a company that'll send it to you called Levels, that has a good app. And what I found, I'm a pretty good biohacker. I spent $1 million upgrading my biology. Like I know my physiological, mental, emotional states better than the average person because they were so crappy that I had to manage them. And I cannot feel a high blood sugar state. There is no feeling at all. And most people can't. You can feel a low blood sugar state, but not a high one. So if you eat something that's healthy, like the cauliflower thing, for you, it may spike it. Quite often, if you have a food sensitivity, your body goes nuts when you eat it. There's this whole weird inflammatory response. The body's like, oh my God, cortisol, you ate something bad for you. And you don't know it. Cortisol actually feels kind of good. It's energizing. And then cortisol releases a bunch of blood sugar, so then you get insulin response. But there's no way you'll know because plantains may work great for one person, they don't work for Mindy. And so just 1 month of doing this and going, oh my God, I didn't sleep well last night, and today, no matter what I eat, I'm completely not okay. And all of a sudden, I have so much control and zero feeling on this one important variable for aging, for menopause, for the quality of your cycle, everything.
I agree completely. I wish that that we can access this for everyone to get a continuous glucose monitor. It really does give us so much information, and it's insightful. I mean, it's not just like the peak, but the valleys. You'll often feel that valley. You won't feel that peak necessarily, but you feel that valley. Like, oh my gosh, what did I just do that is dragging me down? That's making me want that nap, that midday, mid-afternoon nap, and how important that is. I want to circle back to this poll. So I don't know if you guys can see the poll, pop it up or open it back up on your screen. But we talked about fasting. We talked about the number one reason that people want to fast. Biggest struggle with fasting is the confusion about how to do it right. So we're highlighting this, and we'll answer some more questions on that and talk about what we can what we can drink. What are things we can drink and eat during a fast that keeps us fasting? And there are purist fasts, like I have dry fast. Anyone here dry fast? You do some dry fasting. Yeah. So my longest is 72 hours with a dry fast. And don't recommend it, but I like my clients to do overnight dry fasting because bladder issues, getting up in the middle of the night to urinate. So after dinner, nothing more than a cup of tea. You could do some mighty maca and herbal tea, but not much, like really dry fast. And so you can sleep through the night and not wake up. So there's different things we can talk about. All right. So most people here are struggling with belly fat and weight gain, inflammation and joint pain, and hormone changes. So we're seeing that, you guys. So fasting helps all of those things. Now I want to hit on supplements. What supplements are you using to support your fasting? So we've got a lot of MCT, probably bulletproof MCT oil folks here doing that. That's great. And some multivitamins, which are good. And we talked about, you talked about electrolytes. So our salts, electrolytes, that's really helpful too. Omega-3 and vitamin C. There's some supplements here we should add. So I wanted to round table and see what you guys want to add. Mindy, do you want to start?
Yeah, minerals for sure. I mean, if there's one thing I've seen from our hundreds of thousands of resetters going through our fast training weeks every month is we are a mineral deficient world, and you just have to start investigating regenerative agriculture and see that the soils are not providing the minerals in our vegetables that they used to. So you can pretty much assume you're mineral deficient, and when you come into fasting, that would be like the number one supplement I would recommend you add in. It's not, it's no good to be the weight you want to be and have your hair falling out or your heart like racing, and that can all be a sign of mineral deficiency. So just assume you have it and start supplementing with minerals as you build a fasting lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that.
I wrote a chapter in Fast This Way about supplements during fasting because there's actually not a lot of talk about this. Everyone talks about electrolytes, and certainly MCT has entered the world there because of the bulletproof diet. But one of the most powerful ones is proteolytic enzymes or systemic enzymes. And these are enzymes that your body can use to break down protein and scar tissue and even autoimmune stuff in the blood. And when you eat protein, your body takes all this protein digestion and puts it into the gut. When your stomach's empty, your protein enzyme manufacturing capacity can be used for autophagy and to go out and clean up the body. So you can take things like serrapeptase or nattokinase that help to break up things on an empty stomach, and they go to work in the body with the body's own enzyme capacity. And I think it's a really meaningful thing to do during a fast, but it's something most people don't talk about.
We don't talk enough about enzymes. I would tell you as an OBGYN, and you also mentioned Lobozyme in your book in that chapter. Yeah. Excellent chapter. And it was one of my favorites to use for my clients with endometriosis, with fibroids, right? I mean, really saw some major shifts in patients with, non-reversible disease states, right? And so I think that the adding enzymatic support is really important, I think, through dietary enzymes that we're getting through our food, like use different things to do that, like apple cider vinegar, your fermented foods, your kimchi, your sauerkraut. Those things are tremendously helpful. And then supplementing to additional enzymes. We use a variety. In our practice, we have our ketogene enzymes, and we have some additional enzymes that we like to use. And serrapeptase, reminded me about it from the clinical days, and using that is really a great one. Cynthia, how about you?
Well, I was going to say, I run a lot of fasting groups, and one of the hacks that we will occasionally do is we'll add in berberine while fasting. And so berberine is this plant option, and there's a lot of research on berberine that kind of goes head to head, and I'm sure Dave's cranking away because I'm sure you probably have multiple research articles that are in your brain. But in the midst of writing this book, I'm talking about things that can potentiate the autophagy. And so if you've had, let's just say you had a meal where you ate too many carbs, or you're just concerned about bringing your blood sugar back down, sometimes I'll actually take berberine either at the very end of my feeding window. I'm like, I'm going to bed, I'm going to take it now, or I can take it while fasted. And I want to bring something up, and I'm not doing this as a plug per se about Dave, but it is a Dave-related product. Dave had an amazing podcast about spermidine. In fact, I listened to it twice. And so spermidine can potentiate autophagy. And actually, I swear this is not a plug for Dave. It's just.
I love that. So I don't own the company or anything, but I wrote about spermidine in my anti-aging book, but you couldn't buy it. You had to take these weird probiotics illegally imported from Japan in order to make it on board. But it's such a powerful anti-aging thing, and it's a fasting mimetic. Yep. So these guys just launched 6 months ago in the US, and I was so excited. So I take 4 of those capsules every day when I'm fasting.
Yeah, so I just got it in my little biohacking box. And so I was like, I'm just going to coincidentally pour this out. So when I'm thinking about things that we can stack, I call it like the stack, and you'll sometimes see me talk about this on social media. I'm like, berberine is one. This hasn't even been opened yet, but I listened to the podcast twice, and it was great, really good information. And then, just thinking about, Mindy mentioned, electrolytes as well as minerals. And so I'm seeing a lot of questions. And so when I think about minerals, I think predominantly about magnesium. And so I like magnesium multiple ways. And again, it goes back to cardiology. I got really savvy because everyone had low magnesium. I can take it orally, but I also like to use it transdermally. And that means I'm either using ancient minerals, magnesium spray, which you can spray the oil or the lotion, leave it on for 20 minutes and rinse it off. It may be a little tingly. You won't die, I promise. Or you can do like a magnesium soak, and this is one of my hacks. You can soak in it in a bathtub or with your feet, but it's a cup of magnesium flakes, a cup of baking soda, and 2 tablespoons of borax. And no, borax is not going to hurt you if you use it externally, and that will potentiate the absorption of magnesium. And so that worked really, really well for years working with my patients. And so it's something I will talk to clients about as well, because almost everyone is magnesium depleted. And certainly, you know, you think about magnesium depleted soils and how that impacts our health. And you know, we get very focused on sodium and potassium, and we forget about poor magnesium. And I would argue that magnesium is, you know, kind of like the, you know, the bastard kid, but we need to really be thinking about supporting it. So really easy things you can do from home. And for everyone that asks me this question, I'm going to be a millionaire. If you take too much magnesium, you know what's going to happen?
You're going to go to the bathroom.
The worst thing that will happen, you'll get loose stools. So that's how you
Disaster
maintain.
pants. That's the technical term.
No, it's not as bad as disaster pants.
Fair point.
But magnesium, and there's certain formulations of magnesium. Some are bowel tolerant, other ones are not. You know, just being savvy, mag-glycinate is good if you need something to kind of move your bowels along. Magnesium threonate is great because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So that's my magnesium plug for the night.
I love it. One of my favorites. You know, really use a lot of magnesium, and you know, for brain support, for hormone support. And when we test red blood cell magnesium, and everyone can test, you don't test regular magnesium, you just look for red blood cell magnesium. We want that in the optimal range, not normal. Like, who wants to be normal? Anyone here want to be normal?
Can we talk about berberine a little bit more for a second? And berberine is a really neat supplement because it mimics the effects of metformin, which is an anti-diabetes, life-extending pharmaceutical that some people take. But there's a little-known side effect of berberine in some people. We don't know how many people. And it can mess with your heart rate. It can give you an abnormally low heart rate. And when I was taking berberine, I actually, like, full-on passed out, needed an EpiPen to resuscitate me as a result of excess berberine. So it's one of those things where if anything is weird with your heartbeat, be a little bit careful, but it is a powerful blood lowering, fasting enhancing thing, but it has that side effect that most people don't talk about. You can also, if your blood sugar is high, you can take things like chromium picolinate and vanadyl sulfate, which a lot of people are low in when we talk about the minerals like Mindy and Cynthia you were talking about. And those can really help, but vanadyl sulfate acts like insulin. It can lower blood sugar directly. So what I do when I break my fast, I will take those with the meal to keep me from getting a blood sugar spike.
I think that's a really good point, Dave. And the other thing that I would mention about berberine, which is why I don't suggest people take it every day, it has very powerful antimicrobial properties. So sometimes it's prescribed as an antimicrobial agent. And so I usually will say, take it with your largest meal of the day if you're going to use it just because I don't like the concept of a cheat meal, but if maybe you ate too much and you take one, it can also impact like loose stools. So everything goes back to loose stools, but I've even seen some patients that have taken a little too much berberine and then their stool gets loose. They're also not using magnesium concurrently, but just a plug, it's not something you want to take all the time. Chromium GTF is like such an easy, really, really beneficial way to allow for more insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, I love chromium, cinnamon. Add that into your regimens. And another thing that a supplement we add that's not in that list is charcoal. Charcoal while fasting, right? Especially starting fasting, because you want to detox and eliminate toxins out of your body really quickly. And that's one of the reasons I advocate using charcoal, at least periodically. I remember sitting with you at a Mike Fishman event, Dave, and like charcoal, like, okay, we're drinking and eating. Here's some charcoal. It was good. And and so it's really something to consider. And we forget about it. It's inexpensive. It's very available. We've got bulletproof charcoal from Dave, and it's a really good supplement. Another thing I do too to help, like especially detoxing and starting intermittent fasting, starting extending fasting, is we'll do a scoop of Mighty Maca and water. Can add lemon juice, a little apple cider vinegar. I want toxins out of the body as quickly as possible. Our body, while we're sleeping, we're repairing, we're renovating, we're reconstructing, and so moving toxins out as quickly and hopefully safely as possible. Try it. Try these different things and see what helps you extend your fasting interval. Any other stuff? I'm gonna have to look up the spermidine. That's new to me.
It's really, there's a great, sorry, Dave. I mean, I'm not sorry. This is good for you. No. But the Spermidine podcast, I listened to twice, once at the gym and once at my house.
Okay. All right. So we'll maybe we can get a link to that from your team, Dave. We'll make sure
Sure.
that too. And do you talk about that in Fastest Way?
It wasn't available when I published Fast This Way, and I mentioned spermidine's a fasting mimetic, but the problem was there was no way to buy it, and so having a new source of this was really cool. In fact, here I'll paste the link into the chat window here for people to that episode.
Sperm? Is it like derived from sperm? I mean,
well, it was discovered in sperm, so that was where they found it.
Jeez.
I used to buy the research grade chemicals that smelled like its namesake. Like, oh man, I don't know if I can take this, but I'm a biohacker. And the capsules don't. They smell kind of like wheat germ. But they're not offensive, and the science is really solid on spermidine for aging. And also charcoal, you take charcoal away from all your other supplements or medications, but charcoal alone, in my anti-aging book, there's studies that show 15 to 20% longer lifespan from regular use of charcoal because it binds to the bacterial toxins made by gut bacteria when they're stressed. When you're fasting, they get stressed. So if you have like a really bad fast, you take charcoal, literally 20 minutes later, you can feel your body relax as the load of toxins from angry bacteria slows down. So I'm a huge fan of charcoal.
I would ditto that too. And I think one of the things that we see is that when people start to fast, they get these adverse reactions. And then they're like, no, I shouldn't be doing this. And something as simple as activated charcoal can bind to the toxins that are coming out. I think it's a beautiful idea.
Yeah,
binders are good.
Yep. Binders, exactly. Using binders. And these are little things that can help us succeed in our fasting. So we talk about intermittent fasting, 13 to 16 hours. The research, I think, I'm a minimum 13 hours on a pretty regular basis for intermittent.
Another fast you've been too polite to, fasting supplement you've been too polite to mention, Anna, is Maca. Has all sorts of great clinical research behind it, and I think it's totally advisable to take that during a fast. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of kicking myself for not putting that in the chapter there, but there's so many supplements you could write about. But Maca for hormone regulation in particular is a very well-studied herb and definitely worthy of inclusion.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, it is my favorite. It is absolutely my favorite. So we'll use Mighty Maca in our fasting regimens as well. And I think that's one of the reasons. This certainly has helped in so many ways. Adaptogens, right? Like we talk about adaptogens. Now I want to just hit on fasting for exercise. This is what I was just testing out now because I found this infrared yoga studio, Ritual One Yoga here in Dallas. And so you're sweating at 100, been up to 105 degrees in there. And I'm thinking, well, how well can I do this while I'm fasting? And should I be doing this when I'm fasting? And then, come my next hot yoga class, should I do another one, then break my fast immediately after? So let's talk about what you guys recommend, because we have, women doing all different types of exercise, and starting out, what type of exercise should you do? Now, I've been fasting for close to, intermittent fasting and then extended fasting for close to a decade, but really serious fasting in the last 5 years. So it's not something that we just run into. So let's talk about exercise and fasting.
I'll grab that one. I think in a intermittent fasting situation, it's phenomenal to exercise in a fasted state. I think it's incredible tool if you're trying to use it for weight loss. It's amazing. Now, you're in a 48-hour fast. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a hardcore workout because you're putting two stressors together, and you, especially a woman, going through menopause or post-menopause, you now are jeopardizing the spike in cortisol, which is tanking progesterone and other hormones. So I'm a huge fan of it. And I can't even imagine exercising with food in my stomach anymore. Like, I do it all in a fasted state. But the minute you go into 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, let the intelligence of your body figure it out. Don't add a lot of stressors to it, and the body will figure out how to heal.
That's when you should do more restorative exercises.
Yeah.
So that long walk out in nature. Yeah. We talk about hacks, because fasting is one of the biggest resets, right? Mindy, you use that word a lot. One of the biggest hacks, like as a physician, what number one thing I can recommend is doing intermittent fasting and cutting out sugar, right? Getting keto green. That is like the number one thing, one of the number one things I can recommend. And over time, it really becomes a skill and a good friend, good friend to have on your side.
You get to know your body. I mean, I think, again, we're going back to like the birth control topic. We are so disconnected from this intelligence inside our body, and it is working for us every single moment of the day. So when we start fasting, it's a beautiful opportunity to reconnect yourself to this wisdom that wants to work for you. So I wish every doctor would prescribe it. I mean, if you go and look at what the New England Journal of Medicine decided, in 2019, they said this should be the first line of treatment for diabetes, for obesity, for Alzheimer's, dementia. Why aren't we doing that? Like, there is a wisdom that fasting allows you to step into. And I just hope everybody grabs onto it and does it, because it's free and it doesn't take time. So like money and time, the two biggest hurdles to health, you just got to have some knowledge around it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I want to go to testing alkalinity, testing urine pH. You guys recommend it to your client, testing urine pH. I'm a big fan of testing urine pH. I consider that as a vital sign in hormone balancing. So that's one thing. And testing ketones, only 23% have tested ketones. Do you guys recommend testing ketones?
I do, but enjoy it. Be flexible with it. The goal is not.
You're saying don't obsess.
Don't obsess. Like,
I've tested my ketones for a long time. I stuck my fingers all this time, bleeding all over the place. If you want to know that you're in ketosis, do it once, but tracking it multiple times a day gets to be a little bit obsessive. You can be sure that if you're doing an intermittent fast and you're having some MCT, that you have enough ketones to get the basic level. But if you want to say, well, I fasted for 4 days, how high are my ketones? Test. But the idea of pricking your finger multiple times a day, it's not something that's going to make you want to keep doing keto or fasting. It's just not very pleasant. And that you can pee on a stick, you can breathe in a thing, and those are not very accurate, but that's probably enough. So less pain equals more compliance, which is really important. Oh, and one thing about exercise and fasting that's really worth mentioning. If you exercise, especially high intensity interval training, whether it's cardio or just lifting weights, even doing the squats I talked about, if you eat protein within a half hour of that, you prevent a 48-hour-long spike in cortisol. And some people are like, well, I wake up and then I exercise really hard and then I fast for 4 more hours. That's actually going to be more biologically stressful and raise your cortisol. So I'd like to see you exercise at the end of the fast and then eat protein relatively soon afterwards so that you don't get excess cortisol, because fasting itself can raise cortisol if you're over fasting. So be careful with timing of food after exercise. It's okay if it really feels good. You can exercise in the morning and keep fasting, but you might be better off having breakfast and lunch and not dinner if you're a morning exerciser.
One thing I just want to interject about strength training, especially for women that are perimenopause and menopausal, we start to lose, a significant amount of muscle mass once we hit, 40 and beyond. It's called sarcopenia, a big fancy word for this muscle loss of aging. You want to avoid that as much as possible. I see far too many women that want to run and run and run and run and run. They want to do chronic cardio. And I remind people, I'm like, you would be better served doing 30 minutes a couple days a week. I don't care if it's body weight or lifting weights, strength training, so that you are building lean muscle, continuing to maintain this muscle mass, continuing to put stress on your joints so that you're maintaining bone, than this chronic cardio nonsense that, I see women that look haggard in my neighborhood. Hopefully they're not watching, but they run, 6-10 miles a day. And I'm like, you'd be better served going to the gym and lifting some weights, or just doing, Dave was mentioning his wife does body weight squats, which is awesome. And when I look at my CGM data, the days I lift, my blood sugar is consistently 10 points lower the entire day. And you think about muscle as these glucose reservoirs. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon speaks really openly about why it's so important to keep this muscle protein synthesis, going as we're getting older. Really, really important. So make sure you put some focus into building and maintaining muscle.
Oh my goodness, you guys, this has been so good. And we have so many questions that have come in. We've hit some major topics here. And I know for all the listeners, you guys, we've got our experts have resources for you. So I'm gonna we'll be sharing them in email follow up, but listen in and we'll go through just a round table to share your resources, where to find you, where to get your book. Dave, do you want to start? And thank you for hanging out on your vacation, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. I think the kids are having dinner, but I'm not, so it's all good. The best place to find me is daveasprey.com. I mentioned the Dave Asprey box, which is daveaspreybox.com. That was where the Spermidine Life that you got, Cynthia, came from. Every quarter I send out a bunch of goodies. And Bulletproof Radio, clearly I put a link to the podcast there. And if you go to fastthisway.com, I've got all my fasting resources for you guys there. And I want to be really clear. There's a universe of fasting knowledge, and all of us panelists are here in that. And all of us have kind of overlapping and different perspectives. And I would encourage you to take the time to listen to the audibles or read the books. And you will probably hear 10% of things are going, oh my God, they disagree. And that's awesome, because that means you need to try both and see what works for you. And so there's one of us who's like the master of all. It's all of us, but we're all zooming in on what's going to work. And you have to do the work to find out the details for you. It's not always the same for anyone.
That's so true. That's why I love this panel here today too. So important. And Cynthia, I've had I've heard on the back end that your book coming out is just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get an early copy of that.
Yes, I'm really excited. So for everyone that's watching, I am writing a book on intermittent fasting in women. I feel like it's time, and I'm just so excited to have this opportunity. So you definitely want to stay in touch. I have Everyday Wellness podcast where I've been fortunate to have Dave and Mindy and Dr. Anna on as guests, as well as many other health and wellness experts. And I'm very active on Instagram and Twitter, which surprises everyone. And I have a free Facebook group, and I know that information will all be coming out. And I have a fasting masterclass that is coming out, but you'll get all the information in your follow-up emails.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And Mindy.
Yeah, ditto what everybody else said. And I would also agree with Dave. Like, I'm just so grateful that we're having this conversation. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for having it around women, and Dave, thank you for writing a chapter in your book for women. Like, it's time for us to bring this to the surface. So super grateful for that. My passion is my YouTube channel. So I put out two videos a week. Every week I do a fasting Q&A on Thursday, so that's where you can go and binge watch everything you want about fasting. You can go check everything else that I'm doing out on my website, Dr. Mindy Pelz. And my Menopause Reset book will come out on April 6th. So if you want to know lifestyle strategies, I'm a big fan of lifestyle to fix your problems. I don't think we should start throwing pills at everything. I think we should correct lifestyle first. So that's coming out on April 6th. It's called the Menopause Reset.
Well, I'm so looking forward to that. So looking forward to it. And I was like, I don't have my copy here. Yeah. I need a new copy.
Yeah, I should have sent you one. So
I know. I'm so excited for that. I read the PDF.
Yeah, you're on the back.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, that's special. So, and you guys, for me, at dranna.com, very easy. I love doing my show, and there's a space on my show page which says you can ask or tell me anything. No such thing as TMI. And because of that, because of the questions that I get about fasting and so many other topics, I wanted to bring leaders in the fields, right? Each unique in their perspective, their life stories, their experiences, and what they're sharing. But let me tell you, a lot of so much credibility and resources and help for each and every one of you. So I'm excited. I'm really glad that you guys, thank you, Dr. Mindy, Cynthia, and Dave, for joining me, and the thousands of people that have been watching tonight. We've had so many questions. We'll send out some resources and additional information. And I know this is a season of fasting for many religions, and it's Lent for Catholics, and we're fasting for religious and spiritual purposes. Ramadan's coming up in the middle of April, and that's dry fasting sunrise to sunset, dry fasting. And each, like Yom Kippur is a dry fast, that's coming up in September. Different religions, different fast. Actually, the Baha'i religion just finished fasting. And so fasting for many reasons. I invite everyone on to fast with me April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So starting next month, April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, that's the week before, that is the week of Easter, before Easter Sunday. And we'll be fasting in our Keto Green community, so you guys can join me there. We'll be sending out emails and information. Keep interacting with us. And I want to thank all our support staff that have been on today. I know we've had many of your team members on, and my team, Brittany and Edith, have been, actively answering and supporting our clients. And thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you.
Jesus, there's too many comments.
Bless y'all. All right. We'll do this again. Thanks.
All right. I think I screenshotted what I needed because they said you could save the chat, but I couldn't save the chat from my phone. So I was screenshotting it, and then someone said at the very end that the save chat feature was disabled on that webinar. All right. What is your next right step that you will take from when you learned in this presentation? Eat some vegetables. How about listen to next right step? Take my magnesium. What other topics would you like Dr. Annika Becca to bring to a master class? I put menopause, migraines. We thank you for being here. Would love to know if you will share this information with a friend. Absolutely. Dr. Anna looks forward to connecting with you through emails in our Keto Green community on Facebook or in the Girlfriend Doctor Club community. Please write any other comments, suggestions, insights below. Thank you. Stay safe out there. The Girlfriend Doctor Club community, the Keto Green community. All right. I have another webinar that started, not a webinar, a Zoom call that started 7 minutes ago, so I'm going to go now. But the MeWe Fair is on Facebook, Metaphysical Wellness. Okay. Or I don't know the website. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Stay safe out there. Bye. Thanks for listening. And hello to the replay viewer.